Welcome to Bike Week Radio Show.
Powered by Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
Bike Week Radio Show with Bobby Wooldridge, Broc Glover, and Paul Carruthers on San Diego's sports leader, the mighty 1090.
Good morning and welcome into Bike Week Radio Show on San Diego sports leader, the mighty 1090. Thank you guys again for joining us, making us part of your Sunday morning routine, shaking off that Valentine's Day hangover. As we have a couple romantics here in studio. Scott Cox, good to see you, buddy.
Hey, Bobby. Good morning.
And everyone's favorite couple of Bike Week Radio Show. We have the Coros in studio, Chuck and Wendy from Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys.
And they brought us a sidekick,
Mickey the Boxer.
Yeah.
That's the dog, not an actual boxer.
No, it's a dog, very cute dog,
adorable. And there will
Brindle
be pictures.
In color.
There will be pictures up on Bike Week Radio Show of Mickey, the official Bike Week Radio Show.
I kind of like having a pooch in the studio.
But thank you guys again.
4
What dedication? 4 hours the Coros made it down here.
4 hours and 10 minutes, I heard.
4 hours and 10 minutes. We get to the hotel, no reservation. Thank you.
You had checked in. You'd made reservations for the dog-friendly hotel.
Well, that's true. We ferreted out a dog-friendly hotel, and so on Valentine's Day night, very difficult finding another place. But you know what? If you pay for it, you'll find it.
That's right.
And that's what we did, through the nose.
Yeah.
Well, that's usually how we treat people from L.A. here in San Diego.
I don't know if the puppy looks well-rested, but I think she's just mellow.
Well, she's, I think it was first night in a hotel room, She kind of got into it.
And it was Valentine's Day, so.
True.
Some of those hotels are noisy. I'll leave it at that.
We gave her a piece of Hershey chocolate, just in case. No, we didn't.
Well, we also have the other two co-hosts. They were traveling out and about this week, Broc Glover and Paul Carruthers. But let's just jump into it with the news here with Paul.
Nobody knows the news better than Bike Week Radio Show.
This was an age when only men were allowed to read the news.
And only Bike Week Radio Show has Paul Carruthers.
Hey, I'm here. We can do the news now. It's all right, everyone. We can do the news. Hold on. Everyone, why are we all standing around? Let's go.
Paul, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Happy Valentine's Day, guys.
Thank you. Brox, are you there as well?
I am.
In his rental car in Dallas.
Well, it was Valentine's Day yesterday, as we all know, and it's probably pretty hard to think of guys that had a better Valentine's Day than that KTM team. What do you think, Brock?
Boy, there's a segue.
Yeah, I think Roger DeCoster had the best Valentine's Day he probably could ever wish for there as the KTM team juggernaut sweep in beautiful Arlington, Texas. So, but
yeah, I mean, it's funny because I think sometimes it's easy to overlook the fact that it wasn't too long ago when KTM was just KTM and they weren't even factors, and then now it's just like, God, they're there every week, and like you said, it's a dominating team, and that was a dominating performance. They won both classes last night, with Ryan Dungey winning the 450 class, and Marvin Muskin winning the 250 class. Now, for him, that's a pretty cool deal because obviously, he missed the entire season last year. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was a favorite coming into the series. That's my feeling because there's some parity, no doubt about it, in the class, but it's not as deep, and I don't think it's as raw speed as the West Coast Series. But there's some good, there's some good closeness in the racing. I think Marvin's just a little bit above the other riders. I mean, Justin Bogle, he's a little bit, I don't want to say a slower starter, but I think he'll ride a little bit quicker as the series goes on. But last night, there was no doubt about it. To be, as a fan, it was a little bit boring, to be honest with you. There wasn't a lot of races going on the track during the main event. Dungey got the whole shot. Marvin Muskin got the whole shot. And when they both took off, they just, at first, it looked like Ken Roczen would maybe have something for Dungey. Like maybe he had a little bit more speed and he was going to do something. So after about 3 or 4 laps, all of a sudden the gap just kind of stabilized, and next thing you know, actually Dungey started pulling away. And there's all sorts of kind of behind the scenes. I was talking to Scott in the pre-race, or pre-show discussion.
Pre-race.
Yeah, the pre-race. After the first qualifying session, I went to the KTM truck and I walked in, and you could see where Ryan and Roger DeCosta were. The two RDs were definitely at not a heated discussion, but certainly a discussion where the rider wasn't that happy with either the setup of the bike or something there. And so kind of excused myself out of the truck, came back a little bit later. And when the final qualifying session went on, if you really look at if you go to like AMASupercross.com and you check out the timing, you'll see where Ryan Dungey went a couple hundredths of a second quicker in the second practice. And you think, well, that's not much, if they made a change on the bike. But then you look at all the Ken Roxons and the Eli Tomac's and the other riders there and the Trey Canards. They all went about 1 second slower in the second qualifying session, yet Dungey went a slight bit quicker. So that means that obviously Dungey found something that he liked, and it seemed to carry over all the way through the night. And then when the main event came around and he put the hammer down in the first corner, he just slowly rode away from the field. And so they had, he was a force to be reckoned with. And then on top of that, there's all that behind the scenes where, Alden Baker, the trainer of the Stars, the guys that, is the guy that's trained Ricky Carmichael's and James Stewart perfect seasons. And, Ken Roxon, he split up. And then now Ryan Dungey has moved his whole camp out of the Ricky Carmichael Tallahassee area, and he's now up in Claremont, Florida with Alden Baker's new facility. And Alden is training also Marvin Muskin. So you have both guys. He's training about 4 riders. I think Jason Anderson's another one and Adam Cincerello is the other one. But, Alden Baker was another guy that had a great Valentine's Day last night, having both of his riders sweep the main event.
So that explains why he was in every camera shot when each of those guys won.
Exactly. Behind the scenes, he's definitely in the news. Right now it's, here's a guy that's, his results and his past, it's pretty hard to argue.
What's his secret? Deep tissue massage, bicycling?
Yeah, I think
laying on of hands?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess you have to pay a guy probably $200,000-$300,000 a year to train your couple riders to find out what that secret is. But
seriously, he gets that kind of dough?
I think they pay pretty good money for his service.
We're opening a training clinic tomorrow.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly the money. I'm just shooting out numbers and rumors that I hear, but I'm not in that market right now for hiring a trainer, believe it or not. So he's he's certainly a very qualified guy. Gets the results, and you can't argue with his past success. So
no, you can't. And he's worked with the best. I mean, he's worked with the best, and he's been involved in how many championships? I mean, several.
Yeah, a lot. He's the only guy that's he's been on the, as they say, he's been on the bag, or he's been the guy in charge of the only perfect seasons that we've seen in our sport. So, and there was been 3 of them, I believe, and so it's just. The guy gets it done. And if I were looking for a young star coming up, you'd have to have a hard time arguing with trying to get a hold of him or getting his camp. So,
Brock, how was the track overall? I mean, when we first started watching the heat races, I mean, it looked very challenging, and a few of the guys like Muscan just was smooth as butter, put everything together, and I think to quote, RC just said he was totally in a rhythm, which he clearly was, but when we got to the LCQ, when it came on, and my wife Pat looked at it and goes, "Oh man, look at these guys." I said, "Well, that shows you how good the rest of the field is." And we were looking at, even in the LCQ, you're looking at some really good young riders out there, and they look like Keystone Cops. I mean, they're just crashing left, right, and center. So was the track any more challenging than the other tracks we've seen this season?
Well, it was challenging in the fact that, yes, no question about it, it had some challenging sections. There was kind of an odd section coming up to the finish line that I didn't like myself. They had a big wall where you basically accelerated, and I don't know if anybody saw Davey Millsap's crash there, but that was the most bizarre crash I've ever seen a pro rider. He came off that wall, kind of set down.
And then he got whiskey throttle and wheelied over backwards.
Well, he kind of sat down and, gave it a handful, and for some reason it got, extra traction, or I have no idea, but it just looped out over backwards, and it was the strangest crash I've seen in a while, and no question about it. But that little section there where you have a small bump and then a mini double that you had to wheel hop up into the face of the finish line jump just seemed just a problem going to happen. It's one thing when you do this and you make a track where you can ride it by yourself, but when you got to put 22 other guys, or 21 other guys, 22 guys total on the main event on that track at the same time, you got to make it to where you can race, and that's probably the one thing about the track. It seemed to me a lot. The racing wasn't, for some reason, wasn't that great. It was, who knows? It was just round one for the East Coast guys on the 250 class, or for whatever reason, we didn't see a lot of really good racing. Other than, I did see I know Tomac. You guys probably got a better angle than I did, but Tomac and Reed came together a few times, a few crashes here and there. But
it was a firm pass.
Yeah,
maybe some would argue a hard pass, but it was.
This week, I guess Reed had said something about Tomac cost him $2,000 at San Diego because he broke one of his expensive titanium foot pegs, or, I know. So maybe Tomac didn't like
I'm playing
that
my little
comment.
violin right here for those $2,000 foot pegs.
Yeah, I know. So I don't know what it was, or Tomac was just racing. But I figured he'd be somebody who's going to come into the main event and have a good run at the finish and for the win, and he just never had it.
He never looked comfortable.
No, he made a couple of mistakes, had a crash here and there, but just never really didn't run it. And I think Dungey, he's tired of hearing the critics saying he just doesn't have the speed. He's Mr. Consistent, Mr. This. Yeah, consistently first, second, or third. That's not a bad way to win a championship.
True. Hey, talk to us about Vicky Golden. So here's, maybe she's the fastest female motocrosser in America right now. She's at least the one that came out there and tried to qualify.
I was rooting for her, no question about it. But she qualified, I think, 53rd out of 57 or something. Does that sound right? There was only a couple guys. She's running 1 minute lap times. The leaders are running 49s and 50s are the top guys. So she still has a way to go. She's just got to get a little faster in the whoops. And, I don't know. Is it strength? Is it what? I have no idea. She's going to have to get out of her comfort zone a little bit to get up there and try to qualify for the night program. But, good run at it. That's the first race. I think I was on the pre-race show with Jimmy Hawley earlier, and I just kind of, to me, the first round, she's just got to get it under her belt. She's got to get out of there unscathed and get on to the next couple of rounds. Get used to the track designs. Get used to how the pitches of the jumps are built out here on the pro circuit versus what you might find at a local practice supercross track. I mean, it's important to have all that experience, and these guys have been out here for quite a few years, a lot of these riders, and they get used to it, and they're more comfortable, and I'm sure for her, the comfort level was not very high, and being her first pro race like that, and all eyes were on her. So,
what's the biggest shock for a young guy coming there? Maybe you're the fastest guy in your district, or the group you ride with every weekend. When you finally make the decision to go race a supercross, and you show up to a place like Dallas, I mean, for a young rider, you've worked with a lot of them. What are some of the big shocks?
Well, it's kind of anybody that follows college football or any of that kind of stuff. It's the same thing when the guys go from the pros. You might be one of the very best guys on your team, or there's a certain speed that from the college to the pros, it's like every guy in the pros is really fast. And so if you come from a local area, you might be the hot shot, or you might be one of the fastest guys, and occasionally you'll see a guy that runs on the pro circuit. But when you show up and every single guy is that way, it's hard, it's challenging, no question about it. But again, in Vicky's case, she's got to pick up the speed in the whoops. She's got to do a few more things, and then she's unfortunately going to get a little bit outside of her comfort zone in order to do that. And, there's some techniques involved, and there's some, I'm sure she learned a lot. And
speaking of comfort zones, tell us about Ken Roxon. He didn't look super comfortable. We didn't see the same Ken Roxon we've been seeing all season, I think, last
Yeah,
night.
It's a little bit, you're kind of like, you're not, here we are saying, here's a guy that gets second, and we're going, what's wrong with Ken Roxon all of a sudden? No, I mean, it just, I don't know that he had that pure speed. I don't know if Dungey stepped it up a little bit, or, what the situation is, but you're looking at Ken Roxon's result, and you say, well, he beat the guy that beat him a week ago in San Diego. He's beat Eli Tomac, who's won, a race so this year too. So it's just, I don't, that's a good question. And to me, Ken Roxon's doing a good enough job staying consistent. He's only 12 points behind right now in Ryan Dungey. He only lost 3 points last night. It's not the end of the world by any means. He's still comfortably in second. He's still got, 11 points or so over his third place, Trey Kennard. So, right now it's really settling down. I know Tomac can win races like he did in Phoenix. There's no question he's got the speed, but right now he's just not showing himself as being one of the top three guys that are going to contend for this championship. And it's kind of narrowing it down to the Ryan Dungey-Ken Roxon battle. But, Trey's not out of it by any means. He's still got some speed. He's won a couple races this year, but, he's got 2 wins and 2 thirds and no seconds, So, I like when I look through the results, I see the Dungies and the Roxons with the first and the seconds and first and seconds and all those things. So, it's interesting. I don't know, if Ken Roxon needs to, get outside his comfort zone or something, or he just needs to, pick up the speed a little more, or, maybe this new training program or what he's doing for practice and between the weeks. We'll see how it all settles out in a few more weeks, I think. When Daytona is always that thing Paul referred to a week or so ago. Daytona is kind of when the season really starts heading towards the end and kind of it's the midway point, and everybody really looks at, okay, now this is how the season's going to finish up.
Hey, we had another red flag last night, and, we just had a glimpse of it. They usually edit a lot of that stuff on TV, but, we see a rider totally unconscious, at least, laying there on a finish line jump or whatnot.
Yeah,
what were the circumstances?
Well, that was the section I was talking about. I mean, a small wall, you can accelerate out of that, small little tiny bump. You got a pre-wheel hop, a move that used to be the James Stewarts of the world and just the top riders, could do the jump, leap, wheel tap the second one with the rear wheel and then clear the next jump. It's a technique that's pretty advanced, and all of a sudden you throw that in right before the finish line at the very first race for an East Coast series. So those guys, that's like round 1 for all, half the people at the racetrack. So maybe not the smartest place to put something like that, in my opinion, but, the track guys are always looking for an obstacle, new thing, new track design. But I just don't think that's a wise move at round 1 of the 250 lights class, and it caught somebody off guard. I don't know exactly the circumstances, but it's not a good place to have a bad crash, that's for sure, and caused a red flag.
Yeah, true. So. Great, Brock. Appreciate that up-close and personal report, and, another shout-out to you and one of our semi-frequent guests, Lyle Lovett. I'm seeing his face all over Facebook. I saw him little glimpses on the coverage last night, but it was nice that a week after you received your accolades from the Legends and Heroes here in San Diego at Petco Park last Saturday night, your buddy, your riding partner, Lyle Lovett, 4-time Grammy Award winner, he was acknowledged by the Legends and Heroes crew last night in Arlington, Texas, which was kind of neat.
And we're on stage, and we pushed it off a little bit later in the night so that we could get a little more people in the stand. So it was closer to 6 o'clock when he went up on stage. He looks over at me. He goes, he was asking, what do I need to say? How much? I go, we got a couple. You can talk as long as you want. People in the stands want to hear you talk. So,
True.
A couple minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever you want to do. And he goes, I don't know if I've ever, it's like, seriously, I'm pretty darn nervous. I go, come on. Here's a guy that's been on everybody. He goes, yeah, but it's different, And I go, I get what you're saying. And he's, and it was funny. Like, one person wrote into the Legends and Heroes. You're like, why is he winning an award? I was like, this is a guy that swept motorcycle shop floors, worked in a motorcycle shop. He was a parts counter guy. This guy still has a collection of motorcycles. He's so passionate about our sport, and he brings a lot of positive attention. So the Legends and Hero are, he's a true ambassador for the sport of motocross and off-road riding. There's no question that he's an asset to our sport, where we need more participants, not less. So there's no question a guy like him. And you know what? It looks like we're going to be, I don't like to pre-announce it too much, but, we're looking into another guy that was behind the microphone and for years at Supercross. And he never raced, never won a Supercross, but he sure called some of the greatest races I've ever heard called on TV. So
yeah, I know a guy like that.
Yeah. So next week or two, I think you're going to be hearing his name popping up at one of the Legends and Heroes also. And then we're going to bounce right back with probably another famous guy, maybe another El Cajon zoner or something like that. Yeah. So, there's a good lineup of Legends and Heroes coming in.
Best year ever, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I was excited because they displayed 2 of my photos of Lyle Lovett riding a motocross bike, riding a 125 Husky up on that gargantuan Jumbotron. I mean, how big is that ridiculous screen in that stadium?
That stadium's so awesome. So anybody out there that's ever got a doubt we need a new stadium in San Diego, just go visit Callaway Stadium. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So,
cool.
All right, guys, have a great show. Can't wait to get back to San Diego. Happy Valentine's Day to all my family and everybody out there, too. So,
hey, thanks for the bouquet, too, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Mine's a little bigger than Bobby's, but so
you know what? I went with pink instead of red because it's just that's kind of friendship, kind of love.
It matches my eyes.
Well, thanks, Brockster.
All right, take care,
See you,
guys.
pal.
Paul?
Yes.
Great work, buddy. We got to cut you loose, too.
Hey, Paul, speaking of,
I'm tired.
I got to throw this in. Moto America, Paul is the communications director. Elena Myers, how cool is that, huh?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. That is
Please
pretty
do.
cool. She's signed up to run a superbike team next year in the Moto America Series. I'm sorry, next year. I keep thinking next year.
This is next year, Paul.
It's coming up a bit quicker.
Wake
than
up
that.
and smell
It's
the coffee.
this year. So anyway, she's put together a little superbike team for herself, and we'll be racing in all the rounds. And I mean, from my standpoint, it's a win-win because it'll make it nice and easy to take her around and do a little pre-event promotions with her because she's a nice.
Because she's nice
girl
and easy to look at. I see her photo in your press release right here.
Yeah, she's easy on the eyes, and she's a nice girl, and she can actually do the business. She won a super sport race a few years back at Infineon, and she became at that point the first woman to actually win that class. So she's the real deal. She's not going to go win superbike races, but she's going to be there, and I think she knows what she's doing as far as putting together a team, and she's already attracted some good sponsors, and it'll make it fun. It's a good deal, and the series is starting to shape up. I think we've already got over 50 permanent entries, which are 50 people that have signed up to do all the races and paid their money in advance and all that good stuff. So everything's looking good. One thing I wanted to mention that I thought was kind of a cool story was 3-time world superbike champion Troy Bailiff has announced that he's returning to racing. But the interesting part is he's going to come over and do some rounds of the AMA Grand National Dirt Track Championship.
Wow.
And it looks like he's put together a deal with Lloyd Brothers Ducati. And if you remember, Troy won his world championships on Ducati, so he obviously has a good relationship with the factory.
Yeah.
So the Lloyd Brothers are putting together a Ducati program for him, and he has a goal of winning a Grand National Mile. So that's going to be, that series I think has made a big bounce back, and I think there's a lot of positives there for that series, and having somebody like Troy Bailiff show up at a few of your races.
That's a nice statement.
Is actually, it's going to be nice. Now, I personally think he's going to find things a little bit difficult. He spends a lot of time racing a 450 dirt tracker in Australia. But again, when you come over here and you start racing at places like the Springfield Mile against guys on, V-twin Harleys and Kawasaki's and guys that have been doing it forever, I think it's going to be a pretty big ask. But he's also a very talented motorcycle racer, so
we're looking forward to it.
Past him. Yeah, so
Excellent.
if you can get out there and qualify and have some fun, I think it'd be cool. I know you guys have a big, busy show, so I'm going to let you go.
Okay, Paul.
But anyways, hope you all had a good Valentine's night, and I'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, buddy.
See
Get
ya.
home safe.
All right, bye.
All righty. Well, perhaps you're not quite the romantic of Paul Carruthers, who took his lovely bride out to Palm Springs, and maybe you screwed it up. So,
yeah, he just makes a guy like me lousy. I went out and got Chinese food takeout and brought it home. I thought, I got this nailed. And there's Paul's calling in. His wife's posting stuff on Facebook. I'm at the spa with my beloved, and
I know how to make up for it though. It's like, man, the lady's mad at me. What should I do?
What do you do?
Well, on February 15th, you sign her up for the BAM program, and you say, hey, you know what? I messed up yesterday,
I like where you're taking it.
Now you have the nationwide motorcycle roadside assistance program. Wherever you go, Chuck Coro, Wendy Coro, Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys, they got your back.
Yeah, we're BAMing.
Always got your back. That's a great program. Thanks for mentioning it. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. We sponsor the largest nationwide volunteer program, Bikers Helping Bikers. So you can sign up online and get your BAM card. It's a volunteer program. You break down somewhere, you call 1-800-for-Bikers. We'll try to get someone to help you out if you're stranded.
Bam! It's that easy.
And we'll talk about that more. Chuck and Wendy are in studio, as well as Mickey the Boxer.
Mickey!
But up next, Chris Omodt. He is one of the co-authors of Breaking the Code, a true story about a Hell's Angel President and the Cop Who Pursued Him. Really interesting book. And
It's
we've
a
had
page-turner.
we've got about a month to review it and read the book because we're slow readers over here.
I read it in 1 week. As soon as I got it in my hand, I just sat down and read it.
Really cool story, though. So we're going to talk with Chris coming up next. But right now, here's one of those helpful writing hints from Russ Brown, Motorcycle Attorneys. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys have been representing riders for decades. And here's Chuck Coro from Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys to provide you with a helpful writing hint.
If you make a personal injury claim, you will need to document your injuries and treatment. Although home remedies sometimes work, it will be difficult to prove your claim. Similarly, if you are making a lost income claim, you will need documentation. If your doctor orders you off work, ask your doctor to include that instruction in your medical records and provide you with a disability slip. That way you will have documentation of the time off.
This helpful hint was brought to you by Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys at 1-800-4BIKERS or online at russbrown.com.
Hi, James here from Toyota of Escondido. Guys, if you're hearing this commercial, that means you are into powerful machines that go fast and are durable. Toyota of Escondido has the biggest selection in San Diego of Toyota Tacomas and Toyota Tundras. Whether for work or play, we can customize the truck of your choice into the truck of your dreams. Don't waste time anywhere else. Stop by or give us a call. Toyota of Escondido. Freeway close where Highway 78 meets Broadway, just east of the 15.
Here's an idea. Bear with me. You could save quite a bit of money just by switching your motorcycle insurance to Geico. Piles of it, in fact. But there may not be a lot of room on your bike for all that extra cash. So I had somewhat of an idea. You could get one of those nifty little sidecars, pile it up with all that money you just saved, and merrily drive on your way. It's just a thought. Just off the top of my head.
Call Geico today for a free motorcycle rate quote. Geico, saving people money on more than just car insurance.
Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys are the real deal. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. Their entire practice is dedicated to representing motorcyclists. As riders themselves, they understand why you ride, the issues you face, and the motorcycle culture. For over 30 years, Russ Brown and his partner Chuck Coro have been helping injured motorcyclists and their families get the care and compensation they deserve. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys also created BAM. BAM! A nationwide buddy system of over 2 million riders helping riders in the event of a roadside emergency. BAM offers free legal advice, and thanks to Russ Brown, they have staff on hand to take your call 24/7, 365 days a year.
Imagine a real person answering the phone 24/7.
Just call 1-800-4BIKERS for more information and to get your BAM card today. If you go down, call Russ Brown. 1-800-4BIKERS and online at russbrown.com.
Oh, officer, thank you for stopping. It's my husband.
What?
His tongue is frozen to the back bumper.
So how did he...
We were going skiing and we got stuck in the snow, and while Hal was struggling to push us out, he slipped and his tongue...
Well, only one thing to do.
What?
Celebrate Toyota Carlsbad's 43rd birthday and get big savings on new and used Toyotas. Get a free pair of lift tickets to Mountain High, Southern California's closest winter resorts while supplies last. Get one pair per new or used Toyota test drive. No purchase necessary. Must be 18 years old with California driver's license and insurance.
Toyota Carlsbad.
Details at toyotacarlsbad.com.
This is Bike Week Radio Show with Bobby Wooldridge, Broc Glover, and Paul Carruthers on San Diego's sports leader, the mighty 1090.
Welcome back to Bike Week Radio Show, San Diego sports leader, the mighty 1090. And if you've missed any of the programs, we do have a handy-dandy new smartphone app, specific Bike Week Radio Show. That's how you know we've arrived. It's like, all right, you're on the radio, that's cute. You're on iTunes, okay.
Our third year on air, we got to have an app.
Yeah, and so, now we make it incredibly accessible. And it's not just the show, because we only have 1 hour sprint here on Sundays.
It gives... there's 4 of the most recent shows queued up.
Mm-hmm.
So this week,
plus bonus content. When we were
lots
out
of bonus content.
Anaheim and for Supercross, we were at San Diego for Supercross. We're recording interviews. We're constantly out and about and just building that database of content. And we
Photos.
can't just put everything in here.
Everything.
So yes, check it out. Bike Week Radio Show smartphone app,
and it's free.
Free. It's my favorite price.
It works on iPhone and on the Android phones.
Well, let's head out to the hotline where we've track down Chris Omodt. He is one of the co-authors of Breaking the Code, a true story by a Hells Angels president and the cop who pursued him. Chris is the cop who pursued him. We're also, in just a few seconds here, we'll be talking to Pat Matter, the other co-author, the Hells Angels president.
Yeah.
And so, very cool. And that was a bonus thing that Chris looked up for. So, Chris, good morning. Chris, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Beautiful.
Hey, Chris, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
So, we received the books that you sent to us. Thank you very much. And I sat down and read it. I thought, well, I'll gloss through this because we receive things like that, and I'll thumb through it for a few minutes. And I just sat down and read the whole thing. It was a quick read and a real page turner, as they say, I guess, in the book market. Yep. And it's an interesting story. I mean, we're obviously motorcycle guys, so we're interested in motorcycle subject matter. And, right. The format of you kind of trading off a chapter, you write a chapter, Pat writes a chapter, and it was just really interesting and well written, and, my hat's off to you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, and the other thing, it's 100% factual. That's one thing that we insisted on when we wrote the book, that we keep it factual, and I think the fact that we both gave our versions of the story, it kind of balances each other out. So,
and you come from a family of law enforcement. I mean, your family, if I'm not mistaken, goes back. Your dad was in law enforcement, and grandfather too.
Yeah, I'm 3 generations, and we also had a great uncle that was a cop over in Norway before they came over here. So yeah, it's a long history of law enforcement family.
And Chris, obviously this is Breaking the Code as the title of the book, and so a big part of it is getting these people to talk about it. How tough was it to convince Pat to actually tell his side of the story?
It was very tough. He was a true Hells Angel. He was the founder and 21-year president of the Minnesota chapter, and he believed in the code, not breaking the code. And but he found that later in life that his true love, Trish, wife, was what he really wanted, and the child that they had together. And he realized at that time that it was more important to be with his wife and the child than to stay with the Hells Angels, and he wanted out. And that's what I thought, and that's what made me a believer in him, and knew that he was going to turn his life around, because his wife did stand by him for 9+ years while he was in the federal prison. And I just knew that it was going to turn his life around, and I did maintain contact. The one thing that Pat did when he decided to cooperate and such is he asked me to keep an eye on his wife, which I did. I maintained phone contact with her for 9 years and made sure she was doing okay, and that goes a long way. So there was some trust there.
So there was a many years that you were trying to not just track Pat Matter down, the president of the Minnesota chapter of the Hells Angels, but I mean, in your job as a police officer, as a sheriff, or as eventually a detective,
yep,
you were involved, and you were following a lot of guys, but eventually something slipped, something happened that gave you what you needed to go after the big guy, to go after the president and
right.
and really take Pat down. Because as I read through the book and learned through the writings, he had made an effort at that time, maybe coincidentally, or maybe it's because of age and life experience. I mean, he had a pretty successful custom motorcycle company. He was very successful in drag racing. And yep. I think because of many factors, he decided, maybe it's my chance to kind of back away a little bit. And correct me if I'm wrong, did Pat reach a point where he was going to just get out of the Hells Angels, or bring us up to speed on that?
Yeah, we talked about that many times, and he had wanted out for quite a while, really, and but he just couldn't leave. He was the main supplier of the meth up here, and the guys in his charter relied on him as the source. And there's one point where he did want to leave, and they talked him into staying, but he also realized, hey, I'm 50 some years old, and this is a gang, and I just think there's a time where people just say enough's enough. This is a kid type thing, and I think he just really wanted out, and he really wanted to have a normal life. And the other thing was, he did make his custom motorcycle shop. I mean, he went from basically building rebuilding stolen bikes at one point to building real bikes, having his own VIN structure on the bikes, and literally he made a hell of a machine.
And at the time, the market was pretty healthy. I mean, he was really
he was making good money.
Yeah.
I mean, off this business, he really was. So I don't know. He's an interesting guy, for a crook. I got to tell you that the other thing, the bond that's really close between the two of us is his honesty. He is just as honest as they come when he talks to you. I mean, he never embellishes his stories. I can ask him the same question 100 times. I'm going to get the same answer 100 times.
That's
he's
my
one of a
impression.
kind.
Having read the book, that would be my impression of Pat Matter.
Absolutely. Yep. He's a solid guy when it comes to it, and he demanded that amongst his charter too. I mean, if you lied in the charter, you were out.
Yeah, I would think so. What was the hardest part? When you were trying to gather all this evidence over a period of many, many years.
Yep.
I mean, how many Pat Matters are there? If you just back up a little bit, how big are the 1%er clubs or the the hardcore? And I think maybe because of just their notoriety, I'm thinking the Hells Angels would probably consider themselves to be the number one.
Oh, absolutely.
Outlaw motorcycle club, the 1%er. How prolific are the 1%er clubs in the state of Minnesota?
They're here. I mean, just off the top of my head, we've got the Hells Angels, we've got the Sons of Silence. Right across the border, we've got the Outlaws. There's quite a bit, and then we've got some small clubs, that are kind of support clubs that support them all. So I mean, it's a pretty big market. But they for as many people as there are, they stay a pretty low profile, really.
As a law enforcement officer, were you given the resources necessary to really do the job, or was it something you had to fight for? I mean, how big of a focus were these clubs?
Times have changed, since we did this case. But I will tell you that I had a captain at the time that basically gave me just carte blanche to do what we needed to do to get these guys. And so we formed our own task force. So, this wasn't a one-man show. I mean, we had several agencies involved, the IRS and DEA and ATF and some other local agencies. And so it was a coordinated effort. We formed our own task force, and basically my boss said, just do what you need to do. And so we did. And we just had carte blanche, no problems at all. We had a U.S. attorney, which we all loved, a guy named Jeff Paulson, and he was very pro-police, and he would sit in on our weekly meetings and was basically a part of the case, too. And it was a very coordinated effort, and but we were just given the green light. It was fun.
We're joined by Chris Omodt, one of the co-authors of Breaking the Code, a true story about a Hells Angels president and the cop who pursued him. And Chris is the cop who pursued him. And Chris, when you write this book, was there any apprehension that, man, I'm making myself a targeted and there's going to be a lot of people who don't like that this book's coming out?
That's always was in the back of my mind. But, I worked these guys for several years, and of course it's on the back of my mind, but the one thing that I do have, at least amongst the guys that I've dealt with, is I do have their respect because I've always been honest with them. I don't lie to these guys when I talk to them. I'm always very straight with them, and I think that if you talk about your job as a cop or as a crook, respect is probably the number one thing that will make a bond between the two of you, and I think that goes a long way. So. They can be mad at me, they can come down for me or whatever else, but I think the ones that really know me know that I'm a straight shooter and the respect is there.
A big surprise for me, and also in studio with us, Chris, are our friends Chuck and Wendy Coro, and they're with Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. I mean, you've been in motorcycle events. You guys do about 800 events a year, I think, promotionally.
Wow.
They've been a partner of ours and a great sponsor and for Bike Week Radio Show, but. Something that really surprised me, and maybe it's not a surprise to somebody like you Chuck, or you, Chris. They literally spin a wheel to pick a judge on a capital case like Pat's case. Is that commonplace, or is that unique to his case or to the state of Minnesota?
Well, that was an item of contention between Pat and I, because I was a local cop up here, and yes, I had some dealings in the federal system, but not that many dealings, and I honestly had no clue that they spun a wheel. Because in state court where I was working, the chief judge assigns the cases, And I just assumed that was the same thing in the federal court. But yes, they do spin a wheel. And Pat's view is that they didn't do that in his case.
Yeah. How about Chuck? Have you had any experience with judge selection?
Yes, a lot, but not in the criminal area, and not really in the federal area. But some civil cases that they will do that.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And the judge that was overseeing Pat's case seems like he has a reputation. Reading what both of you said, he kind of has a reputation as kind of a tough guy, like a hanging
very
judge.
Tough. I wouldn't want to be in front of him. Honestly, he's a tough guy, and he'll let you know he's a tough guy.
What's life like for Pat these days? I mean, here's a guy, 21 years, founder of the Hells Angels chapter in Minnesota.
Yep.
I don't think you could be any more in than he was in, and now he's
right.
out. I mean, is he just driving around, looking over his shoulder? I mean, what's his life like these days?
Well, you got to know Pat to understand him, but Pat has always tackled everything in his life head on. And there's cases where situations where he'd walk in a bar with 100 outlaws, and he'd walk in there with his colors on, and they would split like the sea. I mean, he just
yeah, he's a tough guy.
That's the way he was.
Yeah.
And he's a little short guy too. He's only 5'4".
Yeah.
But he would walk in there, and they would just part, and that's just the way he carried himself, and he carries himself somewhat like that today. And he said when he came out, he said, you know what, I've been this way my whole life, and I'm not going to change. I'm taking it head on. So he is out and about. He is somewhat cautious, of course. He's not going to do something foolish, but he's out and about, and he's working with his wife and his child. His wife is battling cancer right now, so that's been kind of hard on him. But, he's out and about and just trying to live his life normal as he can.
And I like that there's some really cool pictures in here that I'm assuming Pat was able to provide, because there's no other way to get these pictures.
No.
And then also
Right.
You've provided some pretty cool pictures in here too.
Yep. No, it was a fun thing to put together. It really was, and it was fun because it sounds like we just sat down and wrote a book, but that's not true. We battled through this whole thing because Pat wouldn't believe some of the things I told him until I showed him documentation, stuff like that, and vice versa. It was kind of fun because we go back and forth for hours and hours and hours about how this thing came together and what I was thinking and what he was thinking, and it was kind of fun actually in the end.
Yeah, it comes across in the book. From a reader standpoint, I don't know either of you gentlemen, but reading it, I liked kind of the volleying back and forth. Chris, you say this is what was going on at the time, and at the same time, Pat says, well, this is what life was like for me. And then as you guys got closer and closer to each other and you started interacting with each other, I like the fact that, it isn't just a open and shut deal. It's like, okay, he would appreciate the fact that that's how you viewed things, and he still contends this is the way it went down for me.
Yep.
So that added another layer of entertainment from pure readership on my side.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, we when we sat down and started working on this, we were amazed at how many times our paths had truly crossed. And the funny thing is, when I was a young patrolman in the suburbs, it's in the book where I stopped this pack of motorcycles, and although I thought I'd just stopping one guy originally, and I ended up getting a ticket, but as I get out of my car, I look and there's this whole pack of motorcycles pulling in behind my squad car, and I'm like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And after we got the book, printed and everything, Pat says, he goes, I didn't want to tell you right away because it's almost just so damn coincidental, but it was me that you stopped that day.
No way. The ticket you wrote was for him?
Yes, and and I didn't know anything about bikers at that part of my career. I knew nothing. And so Pat's like, that was me, and he described the situation to a T. He's got almost a photographic memory, and it was absolutely, it just blew my mind. I says, my God, how many times have we crossed paths? We started going through it all, and it's just kind of funny how it all kind of just laid out.
Yeah, really, really interesting. But personality-wise, I mean, you guys, you have a relationship now.
Yes, we do. Yep.
And you certainly have an appreciation for his life and for his well-being. And as you told us, it's sad that he's his wife is suffering from cancer right now. But are you guys? You're doing the book tour. You've done the book tour together. how often you get together, for the benefit of others, either for seminars or some of the law enforcement activities that you're involved in? Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, we do seminar. We were just down in Kansas Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and we're down there for the Kansas Gang Investigators Association, where we sold some of our books down there, and then we met with the board down there and some other law enforcement down there, and arranged another seminar or two from that one. And so we're still active in trying to get seminars. We're doing one down in Indiana here in about a month, and one down in Iowa and next month. And yeah, I mean we're they're picking up. Let's put it that way. So, and it's fun because I really enjoy watching the audience when Pat's talking, because he comes across as so genuine and just tells it really the way it is, and it's just, the jaws usually just kind of drop in the audience when he's talking. It's pretty cool.
And
I imagine.
Where I'm seeing people can pick it up at Amazon and also BarnesandNoble.com.
What's the best way to get the book, Chris?
Yeah, you can get it from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and then we have a Facebook page where you can order it too. It's Breaking the Code book on Facebook. So
yeah.
Yep.
And thanks for the signed copies. We really cherish these. We're going to offer up one of them, two of them. Bobby's. We're going to offer up two of them for our listeners, and we'll handle that next week. But Chris, thank you so much for joining us here on Bike Week Radio Show.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Once again, thank you again to Chris Omodt, the co-author as well with Pat Matter, Breaking the Code, a true story by a Hells Angels president and the cop who pursued him. And really a page turner. And we're going to offer up, I'm assuming, the book that you have in your hand right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, so you not only get a signed copy of Breaking the Code, you get a copy that was sitting on Scott Cox's nightstand.
Exactly. I never set it down.
Well, invaluable, right?
No, it's an interesting book if you like this type of thing, and I do.
Yeah, I mean, 5-star reviews on both Amazon and BarnesandNobles.com. The people have gone crazy for this book because it is a fascinating story.
Incredible,
compelling
story.
Again, I'm a headlines and pictures kind of guy, and the pictures of these bikers, some of them look like they're 9 feet tall.
They are.
And 300
and
pounds.
Imagine, he's the president, he's 5'4".
Yeah.
Bobby, I don't want you to get any aspirations to be a 1%er outlaw biker president.
Yeah. Well, I'll start the Cardigan scooter gang.
Yeah, president of the Cardigans.
Yeah. Coming up next, Chuck and Wendy Coro, Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys, are in studio, and they have some cool events coming up.
We need to catch up on the calendar.
Yeah, and it's just been a while since we've had everyone's favorite people from Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. Exactly. And they didn't bring Kitty, though.
They brought Mickey.
Mickey the boxer's here.
Huh?
But we'll be back. More Bike Week Radio Show, San Diego Sports Leader, Mighty 1090.
Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys are the real deal. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys. Their entire practice is dedicated to representing motorcyclists. As riders themselves, they understand why you ride, the issues you face, and the motorcycle culture. For over 30 years, Russ Brown and his partner Chuck Coro have been helping injured motorcyclists and their families get the care and compensation they deserve. Russ Brown Motorcycle Attorneys also created BAM. BAM! A nationwide buddy system of over 2 million riders helping riders in the event of a roadside emergency. BAM offers free legal advice, and thanks to Russ Brown, they have staff on hand to take your call 24/7, 365 days a year.
Imagine a real person answering the phone 24/7.
Just call 1-800-4BIKERS for more information and to get your BAM card today. If you go down, call Russ Brown. 1-800-4BIKERS and online at russbrown.com.
Oh, officer, thank you for stopping. My husband.
What?
His tongue is frozen to the back bumper.
So how did he...
We were going skiing and we got stuck in the snow, and while Hal was struggling to push us out, he slipped and his tongue...
Well, only one thing to do.
What?
Celebrate Toyota Carlsbad's 43rd birthday and get big savings on new and used Toyotas. Get a free pair of lift tickets to Mountain High, Southern California's closest winter resorts while supplies last. Get one pair per new or used Toyota test drive. No purchase necessary. Must be 18 years old with California driver's license and insurance.
Toyota Carlsbad.
Details at ToyotaCarlsbad.com.
Here's an idea. Bear with me. You could save quite a bit of money just by switching your motorcycle insurance to Geico. Piles of it, in fact. But there may not be a lot of room on your bike for all that extra cash. So I had somewhat of an idea. You could get one of those nifty little sidecars, pile it up with all that money you just saved, and merrily drive on your way. It's just a thought. Just off the top of my head.
Call Geico today for a free motorcycle rate quote. Geico, saving people money on more than just car insurance.
This is Bike Week Radio Show with Bobby Wooldridge, Broc Glover, and Paul Carruthers on San Diego's sports leader, the mighty 1090.
Welcome back, Bike Week Radio Show, San Diego sports leader, the mighty 1090. In studio, the Coral family, including Mickey the Boxer. And so thank you guys again. Making that 4-hour, 10-minute trek from L.A. I feel bad for making him come in studio,
coast,
man.
Chuck was showing us photos of stalactite-sized icicles coming off of a relative's roof, perhaps?
Yeah, there's a lot going on in Boston, my hometown. Many, many years ago, they're getting their umpteenth snowstorm today, and what can I say? It's beautiful here in San Diego.
I just watched a food show that was based in Boston. I went to Parker House, right? The
that's a great spot,
famous hotel and restaurant. I learned how you make Parker House rolls and how they came about. They use a press that was still in service from 1932, I think. And Ho Chi Minh, the former communist president of North Vietnam, was a busboy at the Parker House. Did you know that?
You learn something every day at this show. It's
I
unbelievable.
also learned about Boston cream pie, which I adore, and Boston baked beans. I learned how to make Boston baked beans.
Great town, Boston.
So we've
Go
covered
Red
all the Boston topics there.
And Russ Brown is just winding down their tour of the IMS shows. We went
today, Chicago.
Yep. Chicago. We went to Long Beach.
Yep.
Got
to hang out with
November,
them.
and so
got to hang out with Kitty. Remember that, Bobby?
What is it with this obsession with Kitty with you guys?
Look at Bobby.
Is
Look
it
at
the
Kitty.
long legs
Do the
or
math.
what? I don't know.
Yeah,
It might help that she's a long-legged professional racer.
That might help.
We have a
And
lot of band
I think he
girls.
might be sporting some ink that says Kitty.
intelligent, talented, and she.
And you guys are fun to hang out with. You have to admit, it's a fun place. If you had to walk through any of the shows, I don't care if it's IMS or any motorcycle show, shall we hang out over here with Kitty and her crew and Chuck and Wendy, or should we go over there with those guys with a bunch of greasy motorcycle parts? I know where I'd be.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. We try to have a lot of fun, yeah.
Good.
And we got to break out the angel wings.
Did you see that?
Wow.
Oh, my goodness. Those are very cool.
Yeah, those are amazing.
And I think there's some pictures up on Bike Week
There
Radio Show's
are. There's a
Facebook
whole
page.
gallery.
If you do so happen to wander over there. But what's next for Russ
Yeah,
Brown?
what's next? IMS over today. Where are we going next?
So I'll let Wendy
you
clue you
tell
in
about
on
the big
most
stuff.
of this stuff. But, the big stuff coming up, we got Daytona, of course, coming
Yes.
up in the first week in March. And then we have a show in Colorado Springs somewhere around that time. And then the standards, the Arizona Bike Week's coming up. And then we got the Laughlin, the River Run in April. Then when we go over to Florida, there's a rally in Myrtle Beach and Atlantic Beach. I'm sorry?
And Leesburg.
Leesburg. We got Rolling Thunder, the Ride to the Wall. And then we got the Rot Rally in Austin, Texas. And we got Hollister on July 4th. And we got the big 75th Sturgis. Where the
75th.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
we just found out one of our friends went to the conference there for the Department of Tourism, and they've reevaluated. This year they say, no, it's not going to be 1 million people. It's going to be 1.5 million folks.
In Sturgis.
Descending on that area.
Well, in the general area. The town itself, I think, is about 7,500.
So you're going to have a bunker there. You're not just going to have a display with an easy up. You'll be there.
We're all over the
bunker.
town. No, we're the official attorney sponsors for Sturgis, have been for the last several years. So, yeah, we're at several locations. Also, we're at the Buffalo Chip. We're sponsors over there. And we have our night there Wednesday. I don't know what date it is. It's the first week in August.
August 5th.
August 5th. There you go. So, yeah, it's going to be a hell of a time. And
it's in August 3rd through the 9th, but you got to book now. 75th anniversary.
It really isn't the 3rd. They say that, but it really starts the end of July.
Yeah.
End of July. It's the weekend before the real week. Is really when I think it's a bigger weekend than the last weekend. So.
Yeah,
the pilgrimage.
Yeah. People come up, they want to ride those Black Hills before it gets a little too crowded.
Yeah.
So
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
Got Mount Rushmore and a lot to see. One thing I wanted to tell you guys about is this year, one of the shows, the events that we're sponsoring is Sacramento Mile. Ooh. And we try, whenever we can, when we negotiate these packages, to see what we can do for our band members. And we beyond a 20% discount, which is
that's
nice.
Substantial.
I mean, some of those tickets, if you want the the big full package, are like $100. So
right.
that's a nice little
makes a difference.
Discount. But we're going to have a little promo deal so that when you join BAM, you'll be eligible for a $1,000 free package. You get like the full VIP treatment with
For Sacramento Mile.
Yeah, for Sacramento
Wow.
Mile with the pit passes and a meet and greet afterwards with okay.
So that's like a raffle?
Um,
not a
Bobby, let
Yeah.
go of Wendy's hand. You're not eligible for that.
It's pretty cool. Anyway, it's a really neat package, and I just encourage everybody, join BAM, and then let us know if you want to get these emails for discounts, and because we
Yeah.
don't send them out very often, maybe once a month.
You're not bombarding people
No.
with
The
offers.
only thing we do is if we got some really sweet deal,
You pass it along.
We pass it along. That's it.
And
Otherwise,
of
nothing.
course, our listeners can sign up for BAM online.
Yep.
Go to RussBrownMotorcycleAttorneys.com.
They can call 1-800 for bikers. They don't even have to read or write to do it. Just talk.
Bikers
What could be
helping
simpler?
bikers.
Or stop by one of our booths.
Come over and look for Bobby and Kitty at one of the displays. And how many events? I mean,
we
still
got a
doing
lot
it?
coming up. We also got Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue out in Fayetteville, Arkansas. We're part
That's
of
one of my
that deal.
favorites.
That's a great.
That's near Bentonville, Arkansas. I've flown in and out.
Yeah,
that,
Fayetteville,
Yeah, that's a great. That's
that
a great
airport many
rally.
times,
We got
yeah.
the Lone Star Rally. I don't know if I mentioned that in November, to kind of the end of the year rally. So yeah, we got a lot going on.
I'll say.
And we're always down at Cook's Corner on Sundays and on the weekends.
Right here in Orange County.
Well, I was going to say, Paul Carruthers
Yeah.
just he said
He rides his
stopped by
bicycle
there.
there. Yeah.
I think last weekend. And so thank you again stopping by. Always a pleasure to have you guys in studio. And now that Mickey's around, we got to bring Mickey the boxer back next time.
Telling you.
Yeah. Mickey's the coolest
Quietest dog of all time.
Just
He is
been
an
hanging
awesome
out,
little pup.
making herself right at home here in studio.
A face to love.
Yeah, I hate to wake her up.
Yeah. But if you missed any of the program, all you got to do is head to bikeweekradioshow.com. You can check out the podcast. And even if that is too much work for you, then just download the Bike Week Radio Show
It'll be there
smartphone
for
app.
you.
And it'll
It's
be
easy.
up. It'll be up later today. And so we've had a lot of great compliments. People say, oh, I listen to it. I plug it in at the gym while I'm on the treadmill.
Well, we have a lot of our listeners that are riding their motorcycles. It's, 75 degrees out today? The
For us.
beaches are spectacular. They're riding. Some of them are listening, but they'll download the app. They'll be listening during the week, too, when they should be working.
Once again, thanks to Chris Omodt, Breaking the Code, co-author. We're going to be giving away 2 books later, also through Bike Week Radio Show. Best way to follow us is through the Facebook page. We'll let you know how to get your hands on a couple of those books. We'll be back next Sunday right here on San Diego Sports Leader, Mighty 1090.
You've been listening to Bike Week Radio Show.
Powered by Geico. 15 minutes can save you 15% or more on motorcycle insurance.
Join us next week for more Bike Week Radio Show on San Diego's sports leader, the Mighty 1090.
You are free citizens.